away from the outer world to the inner, to the breath, to the warm darkness behind our eyelids, to the beat of our heart. Just taking a moment to consciously become present in the body, in the heart, in the mind, and to consciously remember that we are more than the self with the small s. We are more than this human experience we're having. We are more than what we can see, taste, touch, hear. So we go to the more right now and establish a deeper place of remembrance so that we can take in this morning's Sunday celebration more deeply, so that it can continue to remind us how awesome we are and what's possible, so that we can continue to free ourselves of any burden, constriction, limiting belief or idea or opinion, and so we can fully be alive. So slowly and gently then, bring your attention back until you're ready to open your eyes if you wish. And then just come back to the room, knowing how much you've already changed in just a few minutes. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Morristown, where we celebrate all of you, where we bless all of you, where we embrace all of you and all of the you that you are, and all of you, with all your stories and all your experiences, all your foibles, all your joys, because we know who you really are. You are spirit disguised as you, spirit disguised as a human being. And so we celebrate you expressing that in greater and greater ways. I'm Frankie Timbers, and I'm the spiritual director here. For those of you that don't know, that means you might be here for the first time. If you are, we're so glad that you found your way to our spiritual community, where we're all about creating a sense of embrace, a sense of belonging, and a sense of place where you come to know that no matter what's happening in your life, you are whole, perfect, and complete exactly the way you are. So we provide tools for that. We have Sunday celebrations, we have workshops, classes, concerts. And because it's such a nasty hot day outside today, you can stay all day in the air conditioning. We have Sunday celebration right now, of course, for an hour. Then there's social hour, or you can go out to lunch, and then you come back at 3 for some amazing musicians for our sensational concert series. We can get you some water if you need. There she is. So Rhonda is going to talk a little bit about that concert later, and look who's here, Rhonda and Mike Bardash. We're so happy to have them here today. And so she'll tell you a little bit later about the wonderful music we're going to have that I'm definitely staying for, because I missed the last two. I was on vacation. So We're going to start with what we always start with, which is the spiritual mind treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer, which is actually what I'm going to be talking about today and during the whole month, which I'll mention in a moment. So let's close our eyes. The spiritual mind treatment is affirmative prayer. And how it's different from traditional prayer is that instead of asking for, which says I don't have it yet, we declare it is already the truth within us, and we give it an avenue through which it can become. So right here, right now, as I speak in the I am, which is our true name, it's our God name, it's our spiritual name, it's our divine name, just hear this, your own words. I know that there is a power for good that is greater than I am in this universe, and I call it God. I call it good. I call it the infinite presence. I call it divine love. I call it grace. Whatever I call it doesn't really matter because it's what it is as my own inner experience. So I know it is that power which allowed the sun to come up this morning and allows it to set later. It's that power that creates divine perfection the way we see it show up in nature. And even though we might have some opinions about what's perfect and what isn't, it is that which says there's only divine right action, there's only perfection with a capital P. And it is that which governs my body, my mind, my heart, my soul, and I let it. So today I surrender to this power and this presence in me in a fresh new way, so that I look at the world with fresh new eyes. So I look at others with fresh new eyes. So I look at my life experiences with fresh new eyes. So I hear the music with fresh new ears and eyes. So that I remember that my life is so much bigger than I ever thought it was. And I step into that sense of bigness with so much love. Because even though I may forget how loved I am so loved. And today I surrender to that love, and then I extend it to all those around me. And that allows me to slip into a state of acceptance and gratitude and joy and peace and harmony. And then I just let go, because I know that Spirit itself, this powerful presence in me, is what answers my prayers, what demonstrates my treatments. And so when I let go, I say I'm ready to receive. And so I let that blessedness be instrumental in this day, in this morning, in all that is that we're experiencing together. And so it is. So I get to do it all today. I have a reading for you. The theme for the year is 100 Years of the Science of Mind. Because the first book that Ernest Holmes, our founder, wrote was Creative Mind. And that was written in 1918. And so we're celebrating the first 100 years of the science of mind, because we probably won't experience 200 years. So let's celebrate it big. Maybe some of us, right? And so August is a new month, and August has a new theme. In August, the theme is spiritual mind treatment, comma, the form. So we're going to be talking about that, and we're using this little book that just arrived in the bookstore. So it's there for you to pick up. This is the book of the month. It's called 5 Steps to Freedom by John Waterhouse. John has a beautiful center in Asheville, North Carolina, and he was the spiritual leader of our organization for a long time. And I loved reading this, even though I've been learning about spiritual mind treatment for 30-some years. I still learn so much when I read the basics. There's another book by Pete Gray that I like about treatment. But the book that's downstairs has a different cover, but it's the same book. The 5 Steps to Freedom by John Waterhouse. And the person who did the foreword is somebody who grew up next door to Ernest Holmes' house. And her name is Marilyn Leo. And her dad was a very close friend with Ernest Holmes. And this is what she said, which I never knew. So there's a parts of it I never knew, so I got excited on the first page. She says, Ernest Holmes created a philosophy of thought that was much in alignment with Ralph Waldo Emerson, Judge Thomas Troward, Jesus of Nazareth, and others. He brought together a compilation of the thinking of great minds throughout the ages and called it Science of Mind. According to Reginald Armour in That Was Ernest, about Ernest Holmes, he said he had the immovable conviction that he never walked alone, that there is a light that lighteth everyone that cometh into this world. He sought always to walk in this light and depend on it for guidance. Dr. Holmes sensed God everywhere and felt that the guidance of spirit was a very real experience. This part I didn't know. Early on, he discovered that when certain principles are used for good, that I knew, there are predictable, repeated outcomes or demonstrations. This I didn't know. He, along with his brother Fenwick Holmes, opened a sanitarium. Who knew that? I didn't know. In 1917, for people who desired Ernest Holmes' treatment, which was an affirmative type of prayer. Ernest Holmes called this prayer mind treatment because treatment was the term used by doctors, and he declared that affirmative prayer he used was scientific in nature and would produce healing results when used. Therefore, it filled the role of treatment. Though Holmes never wanted to give a formula for spiritual mind treatment, in his book, The Science of Mind, he sets forth 3 steps in the chapter titled The Practice of Science of Mind Healing, which he believes are effective in coming to a place of knowing the truth, wholeness. And then this part I didn't know. Many years later, Orrin Mohn, then the head of Education Department of the Institute of Religious Science, believed it to be helpful to create a guideline for treatment and added the next 2 steps, thanksgiving and release. At other times in our history, additional people created 4 steps, 6 steps, and I've heard that there are as many as 16. The author is thorough in his explanation and guidance of the 5 steps and provides work pages for your practice in writing the steps of treatment. However, we must remember that a change in our awareness of who we are and our relationship in divine spirit is what will bring about changes in our lives. The realization of the presence of God is the most powerful healing agent known. Science of Mind, page 145. And this means in all situations. Isn't that great? So we learned a few new things. So I'm going to talk about the steps of treatment. So, today I want to talk about the what, my little slips of paper, my life. The what, the when, and the how of affirmative prayer, of spiritual mind treatment. I'm going to assume that not everybody in this room knows what spiritual mind treatment is. I'm going to assume that those who do don't do it all day long. I'm going to assume that most of you treat or pray at least once a day. And so I'm making a lot of assumptions. And it's on the gamut of when and how we pray, right? So this is a little bit for everyone. Even those of us who have been doing daily treatment for many years, 35-ish, 30-ish, I feel like there's room for us to learn more, to understand it at a deeper level, to have a different experience with it. So I always smile when people say, oh, I already know that. I already know that. I don't need to take another class. I don't need to read that book again. I'm always amazed that when I read a Science of Mind textbook again, and I lost count, how I always joke that they put new chapters in there that were never there before since 1928. Because we learn differently, and as we grow and as we learn, when we read something or look at something or listen to something, we hear it with a different nuance, and that nuance can literally be healing and or life transforming. So we say in our teaching that spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer, is talking to God. And that meditation is listening to God. I don't think of it as talking to God because it feels like God is outside of me, but it does feel like a deeper conversation that I'm having inside myself with my higher self, with my true nature, because we already know that a God that we believe in is not a God outside ourselves. It's a God that is already within us. I mean, I didn't have to plug in this morning to make my heart beat or my lungs work. That to me is the God in me. And so we learn in this theme for the year, for the month, this wonderful quote from the Science of Mind textbook where Ernest Holmes says, we have nothing new. This teaching is not new. There's nothing new about it. It has existed since the beginning of time. It goes back to the beginning of time. We simply have a new approach to an old truth. A more intelligent, a more systematic way of consciously arriving at faith. And so Ernest Holmes, the brilliant mystic that he was, studied all the different world religions, and then he took from that, which were truth principles, he kind of took the golden rule of all of them and distilled it into a very practical, systematic teaching that could be practiced by everyone. And the tool that he brought to life was spiritual mind treatment, is affirmative prayer, which is a 5-step process, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that actually transforms our consciousness, that we sometimes call heals us. And the reason that it does is because it is a scientific prayer. It's a scientific method to arrive at the truth, to deepen our faith, to trust in this infinite principle that governs all of life. It works. How many of you are brave enough to put your hand up and say, I know treatment works? Without a shadow of a doubt. It's okay that those of you that did not put your hand up, because this is not about shame or right or wrong, but it's really important to arrive at that place and say, I know this works. Because what happens is our ego mind, our human mind, the mind part of us that likes to limit, which is kind of like Ernest Holmes says, our human nature is to be negative, that doubts and fears is the mind that's being transformed, is the mind that we become aware of to say, oh, that's so interesting, I don't believe in this stuff at all. Because what we learn in our teaching is what the master teacher Jesus said, it is done unto you as you believe. So it behooves us to become aware of what we believe, even though we know that part of our belief is not conscious. We make it conscious by noticing how we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we believe, what's going on in the world, and how we observe that, and what kind of opinions we have about that. Because in our teaching we say, thoughts are things. Same thing as saying, it's done unto you as you believe. Thoughts are things. Your thoughts don't just happen in a little lockbox. Your thoughts that you have create your reality. And that's not, I'm going, oh, I better be careful, every thought I have. No, it's the general content of your thought. So if you're a person that always feels that good is going to come out of any experience, you're going to have a whole different life than if you say, oh, the world is against me, or I'm a victim, or something's wrong with me. And so it's very important for us to pay attention and to at least make a commitment. You know, if you're saying, I think the world is out to get me, and you believe that, then go for it. You know, be honest about it. Be truthful about it. Admit it. Take responsibility for it. Because it doesn't really matter what you believe. You just get to experience the outcome of what you believe, and that's what matters. And if you don't like it, then you can literally change it by means of changing the thinking, changing the belief, changing the consciousness. That's where the tool of spiritual mind treatment comes in. And it's all about freedom. I have never met a human being in my short life so far that said, I don't want to be free. Or I don't want to be more free. Everybody wants to be freer. Everybody wants to experience freedom. But freedom is not given. Freedom is cultivated by means of cultivating our consciousness, by means of growing our faith, by means of letting go, by means of forgiveness, by means of doing the work that we do in participation of our own evolution. And so scientific prayer is about noticing where you don't feel whole, where you don't believe you are whole. It's important to know that. Some of us might not know. I'm not sure where I don't feel whole. Well, find out, because you can plug that one up with a few treatments, with a few spiritual practices, until you feel that shift. And so that's why the topic today is called Power Prayer, because spiritual mind treatment, and John Waterhouse uses that term in the book, never heard that before. I love that, power prayer. Spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer, is power prayer, because it reconnects you with the power that is within you. You consciously use it, and then you experience a shift in consciousness. It may not always be what you treat for, but it's always something that then unfolds and makes you more awake and aware and more free. So I want to talk now about the when. When do you treat? When we first come into this teaching and people learn spiritual mind treatment, or they go to a practitioner because they need spiritual mind treatment, it is when they're suffering or struggling. When they have a financial problem, a health problem, a relationship problem, a work problem, then they call us. Hey, I have a problem, I need a treatment. Can you help me? Or people treat in the beginning to change some of the outer stuff, right? Let me get a relationship, let me get a parking space, let me get a job, let me have more money. But then as we evolve using this teaching, we discover that all that is really fantastic, but it's not always satisfying. So then we go, oh, I get to cultivate the consciousness of greater health, of greater abundance, of greater love, greater relationships, of sharing and living my purpose. So that is a process, and the process continues to evolve as we grow. And so what I believe is the challenges that we have in life really become the portals through which the awakening happens, through which we claim a greater sense of freedom. So sometimes cursing them or treating them away is not the answer. But to cultivate a consciousness of wholeness, which then shifts all that. And so when do you treat? I believe all the time. If thoughts are things, and you're really always praying, because you're thinking and a thought is a prayer, then always. And it's to become aware of that. I do like affirmations or mantras, and I do them like all day long. I'm not doing them when I'm on the phone with you or counseling with you or at the grocery store, but it's always going on in the back of my mind. When I'm in traffic, when I'm waiting at the bank, when I'm peeing, when I'm showering, there's something going on in the back of my mind that's like an affirmation or a prayer or a breath or a word or a remembrance of a feeling. And so the question then is, how's your faith? How's your faith? What do you believe? And are you in alignment with everything you believe? Does it reflect your faith? If not, then you have something to pray about, to pray for, to treat for. So I would say, treat often and treat much. And start your day that way. Those of you that don't start your day with spiritual practices, experiment with it for a week. And you'll never go back thinking it's more important to have coffee first, turn your phone on, check Facebook, go for a run. The first thing we want to do is to be grounded in the truth so that we can face the day. Because I don't know about you, but some days are really hard, and I can't imagine to do them without my spiritual practices. So what I love about this concept of becoming a prayer, of becoming a living treatment, is that first you do the treatments, and then you become them. First you do the prayer, and then you become it. First you do the meditation, and then you become it. The same way you practice anything new, it becomes second nature. Do any of you watch America's Got Talent or World of Dance? Oh, sometimes. Oh, good, I'm glad. It's Norman, my favorite show. We watch it together. We just love it. And I watch these people perform, and I'm like, that didn't happen overnight. That is many years of practice. And even then, they get rejected. It's the same with spiritual practices, except you never get rejected. Because it doesn't exist. You just grow as a human being, as a spiritual being. You become what you're praying for, what you're praying about, what you're meditating on. You become a place where the treatment demonstrates. Spiritual mind treatment becomes a living thing, and you become a living treatment, a living prayer. Because that's what you are in the first place. You just forgot when you came out of the womb, and you've been spending all your life remembering that. And it's the remembering that moves us into the practice. So how then do we treat? Well, I teach 5 steps. Ernest Holmes did only the first 3 steps, and now I know that Orrin Norwin added the next 2 steps. Sometimes we teach 7 steps because there is a denial and a reaffirmation, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I would say, get thyself into a class in September, because I'm going to teach the basics. Spiritual mind treatment. So you're going to want to take that class, because magic happens in there. So whether you take handouts, and if you're new, it's inside your packets, there is a little box on the table by the exit door that talks about what is science of mind, and on the back of that it gives you the steps of treatment. There are websites where you can learn treatment if you're new to it, or where you can just type in the words for each step and then it spits out a treatment. You can talk to a practitioner, take a class, and there's lots of fine-tuning to do for those of us who continuously do spiritual mind treatment. But so I'm going to talk about it in a little bit of a different way, but still give those of you that are new to this a clear understanding of what the steps are. Your first step is really where you say, what is my God, or spirit, or universe, or divine intelligence, or infinite knower? I don't care what you call it. Call it something that makes you go, oh, where you feel something. I mean, prayer is not like, God is all there is. That is like not what prayer is. You want to feel something. You want to have an experience. You want to have you want to have your heart burst. Fart. Do something. Just have an experience of what kind of God you believe in. What is your God? What do you believe it to be? And then praise that God. Then speak that. Then have that inner conversation. It doesn't matter how you do it. Get it like perfect treatment. You'll learn that in class. But just have an experience. Define what that is. I don't care what you do. You can say it's in the stars, in the moon, in my baby's eyes, in my puppy's tail, in his licking of my face. I don't care. Just start really having that feeling, because there comes a moment where you feel so full, you feel like you're going to burst. You'll be done with that definition of what spirit is. It's really important for us to know what we call God. Because if you don't know it, you can't experience it. Your God is your experience of God, no more, no less. So if you say, God is peace, well, then feel that peace, feel something with the word peace, and then that becomes your experience. So you might as well think really big, because if you want freedom and you want to experience that sense of wholeness, make it a little bit bigger and describe it to yourself and feel it. The next step is where you feel that connection. So if you describe God as the entire universe, and you're in that universe, right? Then there's got to be some kind of connection. And I don't know what that connection is for you, but you must know what that connection is. And you must be able to describe it, to feel it, to put it into words. It's really just adding you to what you've just defined. Don't leave yourself out. If you're describing in step one what the universe is, you can't leave yourself out, so add yourself into the mix. It's like the second ingredient. The third step is where you imagine the outcome of why you're praying, why you're treating. What do you want to experience? What do you want to feel? What do you want to have be different in your life? What does it mean to be whole? How will that affect you the most? How will that transform you or heal you? Then you have to describe that, because if you can't think it, you can't say it, you can't see it, you can't experience it. So you have to put it into words. I really think a lot of people that say, I don't know how to do it, is because they just don't want to. They're so afraid of the experience of their greatness that it's easier to keep thinking small. That's not a conscious thing. That's just based on past conditioning. So we say you have to see it to believe it. You have to think it before it can be. Thoughts are things. You have to know what it looks like. You have to know what you want to experience. You have to know what you want. So speak it. And then the fourth step is, I don't know about you, but when I do these steps, especially the third step, and I do an affirmation for greater health, or greater abundance, or greater creativity, or greater joy, I'm excited by that time. Whoa! Right? Let your face know that you're excited. Let your body know that you're excited. What is the natural thing that happens when you're excited? You're grateful. You feel blessed. That is a step of acceptance. I accept this wonderful gift I've just spoken into being, and I'm so excited and so happy and I'm so grateful. We thank other people so much more than we thank God. I mean, it's like we live in American culture where you're supposed to say thank you every other phrase, because otherwise you're rude. Well, how about thanking your inherent presence, your inherent power, yourself? And so there's three parts to this gratitude step that you can do. You can be grateful for your past experience because it's brought you to where you are. You're willing to learn from it. You can be grateful for who you are or what you have today. And you can be grateful for what is about to happen because you just spoke it into being. And it's not up to any of us when it demonstrates. We just have to know it because the universe doesn't know time. We know hours and days and months, and sometimes we do a treatment and a month later it hasn't demonstrated and we're saying it doesn't work. Well, your spirit doesn't know your calendar or your clock. You just have to trust, and that's where the last step comes in, step 5, which is release. And most of the time that step gets the least attention because we just go, and so it is. Thank God, that's over. But the last step, and so it is a release step, but it's really a step that says, I am ready to receive. She got it. She went, yes, I'm ready to receive. And so each step is a powerful ingredient for the next step. But each step is an important ingredient in the whole idea of scientific prayer. Recognition, unification, affirmation, gratitude, release. And so it's all about our personal evolution, which, by the way, isn't personal anymore. We think in this teaching too much me sometimes. I, there's only one I. It's an individual expression, individual awakening, individual awareness. But we are one with all that is. So our personal work, our personal evolution becomes part of the global. Our times aren't worse than they've ever been, as sometimes I'm tempted to think. It's the same as it's always been. But the more we are aware of the I and the we as one, we have a responsibility to personally stand in our own wholeness and to free ourselves of any limitations, because that becomes our contribution to the world. And so last week, I mentioned my new guru, Rob Bell, who said weak is the new strong. And I've kind of been keeping that as a mantra about the places where I might feel weak. I go, oh, that's my new strong. And so what does that mean? What direction I want to move into? It really helps me to understand. So I read this quote by him that I want to use in closing, because it's all about freedom. And I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to come back to it for just a minute or two. He says, I'm convinced, and I put this on Facebook for those of you that may have already heard it, I'm convinced being generous is a better way to live. I'm convinced forgiving people and not carrying around bitterness is a better way to live. I'm convinced having compassion is a better way to live. I'm convinced pursuing peace in every situation is a better way to live. I'm convinced listening to the wisdom of others is a better way to live. And I'm convinced being honest with people is a better way to live. My guess is that nobody in this room disagrees. I even guess that most people would agree. So how come we don't live in a world where everybody is that way? It's because we've forgotten who we really are. We forgot that we're already whole. We forgot that we're spiritual beings. We forgot that we're here evolving, growing, transforming, healing. So rather than pointing fingers at anyone else, we continue to cultivate a consciousness of greater generosity. I have some room there. We cultivate a consciousness of being more forgiving and letting go of any bitterness. We cultivate consciousness of greater compassion. We continue to cultivate a consciousness of peace. And we continue to cultivate a consciousness of listening to the wisdom of others. And we continue to cultivate a consciousness of greater honesty. I get to really work on all of these, like I think most of us do. And if we do it with love and with patience and with care and with kindness, and if we trust each other, trust ourselves and trust others, that we're all doing it at our own pace, and that we are growing, because I know there's nobody in here, even though I may not know you yet, there's no one in here that isn't growing. that isn't learning, that isn't more generous today than they were last year, that is more aware that they are peace bringers now than they were a month ago, that they aren't kinder than they used to be. Because I know what happens when you step into this room. It does not touch you. And so let it touch you in a deeper way. And take that with you into your day, so you're not just doing it, but you're becoming it. So let's close our eyes. In this very moment, as we take a breath, we remember that the breath is life itself. It's spirit, God, the universe, divine love, breathing us. So it behooves us to take deep, slow breaths as a way to remember who and what we really are. Spirit in a body, spirit in a human suit, having this strange, weird, complex, joy-filled, fun, sensual, awesome experience called being human. Our humanness is just the way that our spirit grows, that our spirit evolves, that we awaken to our spiritual nature. So today we've established a deeper connection that made us feel something, that made us maybe laugh or maybe almost choke, but it made us feel something. And in the feeling, there is information about what we think, what we believe, what we feel, where we've been, where we're going, where we are, where we want to go. And today we take that information and we distill it down through our spiritual practices to become more awake and more aware of who we are here to be, what we are here to do. And then we just put one foot in front of the other, in the direction of that purpose, of that life, of that being and becoming. Trusting that the next steps are always to be revealed as we go, because that's how spirit works. And today we trust that in a deeper way than ever before, so that we can take that one step wholeheartedly and know that the universe meets us at the end of each step, revealing the next step. And so each of us accepts this truth in their own way, in a new way, in a fresh way. And we are filled with gratitude and a full acceptance of this word, knowing that the universal law does the rest. So that the moment that I close this prayer, this affirmative prayer, this treatment, I am already receiving, because the release is the receiving. And so with very deliberate, conscious sense in my heart, my mind, in our hearts and our minds, we say together slowly, and so it is. And so it is. Have a great week, everybody. See you at the concert.